welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, Pokemon trainers of all ages, to the semifinals of the Collector Store St. Peter's Pokemon Challenge. We have a real treat for you. Alex versus Ben. We saw Ben in round 1 with his Kyogre team, and Alex managed to get into the top 4 with a 2-2 record. Only 2 people were able to hit a 3-1 record, so Alex managed to squeeze into the top 4 spot, and what an interesting team Alex has got ready for us.
Yeah. This team that Alex has is a real hard Trick Room team. So not unlike what we saw from Chris earlier, with actually some similar Pokemon, but with a lot of differences too. Aiming with that Calyrex-Ice Rider instead of the Lunala, but still has the Expanding Force option with the Hatterene. The poor Ben, if Ben wins this one, may have to fight against another hard Trick Room team in the finals, and those can always be tricky to fight. It's always, you just have to you have to think really far ahead. You have to okay, how many Trick Room terms are left? How can I afford to take the damage here? Things like that. So the pressure's on for Ben. I'd say that Alex has a favorable matchup here. The Hatterene just does so much damage to everything with Expanding Force. The Kyogre can deal heavy damage back, but Kyogre can only really do that one time. So I think it's a matter of how well can Ben use his Kyogre here to either stop Trick Room from Alex or stall through Trick Room turns, because Kyogre is fairly bulky.
Yeah, Kyogre is definitely bulky, especially on that physical side. In the first round, we saw Tornadus paired with Kyogre very well. Not so sure if we'll see that here with Trick Room really making Tailwind a liability. I expect we'll see Amoonguss coming from Ben to help mitigate the Trick Room.
Yeah, the Amoonguss is definitely something that has to come with your Ben, but you have to be careful with it. The Amoonguss is Terra Dark, which is good into Expanding Force. I think you'd really be interested in Terastallizing your Amoonguss here, but that means that it kind of has to come up front, or you have to give up a Pokemon before Amoonguss can come in. So it's not especially obvious, I think, how each side is going to play this one. We see Annihilape being potentially considered as a lead here. That would be able to knock out the Kyogre in a single hit with its final Gambit attack. Annihilape has plenty of HP to be able to one-shot a Kyogre, even if the Kyogre itself has max HP. But we've seen earlier in round 1 that this Kyogre is not just max HP, it does have some speed on it. But we'll have to see how both players decide to approach this matchup. We've got Alex versus Ben. It's top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this tremendously. Iron Hands and Ludicolo. So no restricteds out on the field on this turn 1.
This is an interesting one. The Annihilape, if it wants, has a pretty free KO into Ludicolo. Ludicolo does not carry Protect, doesn't have Terra Ghost. Final Gambit would just pick up a KO there, no questions asked. However, you may be inclined to instead throw a Final Gambit at the Iron Hands. That probably wouldn't knock out in a single hit. Most Iron Hands will have more than 217 HP. However, that would deal heavy damage to it. You could follow up with a Knighted Cudgel, or with a Grass-type attack to finish the job. The Ludicolo here also isn't really pressuring a whole lot. If you, for example, go for a Final Gambit into one of these Pokemon and then Spiky Shield, next turn you probably have a pretty follow-me Trick Room. So we'll see what happens here. It's Kyogre switching in. Kyogre the champion, but will it be able to survive incoming attacks?
Yeah, this is a great move on the side of Ben. This activates the Swift Swim ability of the Ludicolo, allowing it to outspeed the Choice Scarf.
Ooh, not enough!
Not enough speed. That's massive knowledge to be had. And so this Ludicolo is now off the field, but the Kyogre did manage to switch in safely.
Yeah, I think all in all, you're probably not too upset by that if you're Ben. If I was into Kyogre, I think it would have been maybe game over on spot. It would have been really bad, because next turn you would have been able to go back into Iron Hands, but you'd have to fake out Muddy Water, which is definitely not anywhere near as effective as the fake out Water Spout that Ben is now threatening. The fake out Water Spout is fairly obvious, but you also kind of have to go for fake out into the Ogerpon as well, unless you want to commit your Terastallization on Kyogre. Otherwise, Woodhammer could potentially knock out the Kyogre in a single hit. But Calyrex-Ice does have that Terra Water, and that's going to be really instrumental. If you're able to use that to get Trick Room up, then you can just start going Lance, Lance, Lance. However, you don't really have a lot of good Lance targets. Like, Iron Hands will typically take less than half from a Glacial Lance, and this is the clear amulet on Calyrex-Ice, so it doesn't have a damage boost from something like Nevermelt Ice. The tricky thing here is, like which one does Fake Out go into? If you Fake Out the Calyrex and it's just like Wood Hammer into the Kyogre, then this would do very, very low damage, and it would break the Sturdy on your own Ogerpon. So it'll be tricky. Kyogre starts off this turn with a Terastallization.
Yeah, absolutely. Going for that Terra Grass, not wanting any part of Ogerpon's Wood Hammer. Both restricted Terastallizing. Going into Terra Water on this Calyrex to resist the obscene damage Kyogre can put out in the rain with Origin Pulse or Water Spout. So we see the Fake Out breaking the Sturdy on this Ogerpon-Cornerstone. Really dangerous, but the Water Spout coming out, taking out the Ogerpon, and we'll see how Calyrex is going to respond here.
Yeah, but a Trick Room or a Glacial Lance would just be awful, right? I don't understand that Terastallization if we're going to throw a Fake Out at the Ogerpon's way. Now your Kyogre is weak to Glacial Lance, and that is huge as opposed to resisting it. It means now you just have a Glacial Lance into that slot and probably a Dazzling Gleam. Let me just make sure that actually knows that move. It does have Dazzling Gleam. So, yeah, it's just like double spread moves, isn't it? That Terastallization on Kyogre getting absolutely no value and being a real detriment here. I think that that's going to cost Ben this game potentially.
It's definitely possible. I'm very interested. We didn't get to see Iron Hands much earlier in the day from Ben, so we don't know how tanky it is with the Assault Vest, but wow, that's a lot of damage from that Dazzling Gleam. So we'll see if this Glacial Lance can get a double knockout here. And no, the Iron Hands is able to live, and it, unlike other Iron Hands, this one does have an Electric type move.
Yeah, that's a pretty crucial survival from Iron Hands. Actually took that Glacial Lance really comfortably. It probably has some HP investment on it. The Wild Charge, not even into the Calyrex, though, into the Hatterene, and that's not even enough for a KO. So now, I think it's last mon Ludicolo, right? No, we haven't seen. Ludicolo's gone down because of the final Gambit. It is Amoonguss. So, Hatterene typically is slower than Amoonguss, even if Amoonguss is trained to be as slow as possible. If Hatterene is also trained to be as slow as possible, then it could underspeed here and just go for a Dazzling Gleam, and that would just pick up the Iron Hands. Expanding Force might pick up the knockout on Amoonguss. I don't know if I'd want to mess around with that. Just take Dazzling Gleam, just take a guaranteed KO there. The Amoonguss, its only offensive option is Pollen Puff, so it is never going to break Calyrex quickly enough. So even if you fall asleep due to Spore, you'll be just fine. So potentially considering that Expanding Force doesn't opt for that, though. The Amoonguss just goes for Protect, and it'll block this attack.
Yeah, absolutely. Expanding Force whiffing into that Protect, but that means that Calyrex-Ice Rider can throw another Glacial Lance out, and with how low the Iron Hands is, even the small amount of damage it dealt last turn, it's still way too much for this Iron Hands to take. It goes down, giving an attack boost to this giving a Chilling Neigh attack boost to this Calyrex.
Yeah, now this is definitely over. Expanding Force was probably still fine there, even if the Iron Hands would probably have had to undersped Calyrex for that to be a risky play, and we've already seen, based on these speed interactions, that the Calyrex was slower than the Iron Hands. It's possible if both were trained to be as slow as possible, that maybe it was a speed tie, but we saw that Alex was saying, nah, that's probably not likely. And now there should be no trouble in wrapping this up. Expanding Force, let's see if it's enough to pick up a 1-hit KO on Amoonguss just by itself. Not quite enough.
No, the Invisible Focus Ash coming in. It's unsure if that's a roll or not, but we definitely see this Amoonguss hanging on for dear life. We see the counter Trick Room reverting speed back to normal. I believe that will allow Calyrex to outspeed Amoonguss on this turn, guaranteeing the win. But really interesting that Amoonguss was able to live the non-psychic terrain boosted Expanding Force.
Yeah, that is important. If the Expanding Force had KO'd there, then we would know for game 2 or 3 that the Expanding Force is just threatening a straight-up one-shot on Amoonguss. Now we know that it's going to require Psychic Terrain to actually get the remaining bit of damage. Amoonguss there just protecting, likely not to be like, oh, like, I'll definitely win versus this Calyrex. Likely instead just using this time to think. And I really like that Alex is doing the exact same thing. Just using this time to think. Amoonguss lands Double Protect, so Ben may be using his luck up a little bit early in this game. You don't want to use your Double Protects until you have to, right? But yeah, no matter what, even if the Amoonguss was somehow faster than this Calyrex and goes for Spore, Pollen Puff is probably not going to knock out Calyrex in 3 hits, which is the best you're going to get, and we've only been seeing an attempt there. Calyrex is faster than the Amoonguss, goes for the Glacial Lance, and picks off the remaining amount of HP.
Yeah, Ben thinks he's ready for game number 2, has the adjustments in his mind ready to go, and is ready to take this loss and get 2 wins back-to-back to make it to our finals. Meanwhile, Alex is definitely hungry, managed to scrape into the top 4, and taking out the current undefeated Ben would be huge for him going into the finals here today.
Yeah, so I really like what Alex did. He didn't have to lead with like a dedicated hard Trick Room component. And it also would have been kind of difficult to do that anyway. If it was like Kyogre plus X, then you're going to have to deal with a lot of variance there. And so leading with Annihilape Cornerstone covered for like, it's pretty obvious. Like, Ben, you're not bringing Tornadus, right? Like, you don't bring Tornadus versus a Trick Room matchup. And so by taking advantage of that, the Annihilape was just able to outspeed Ludicolo even in the rain. Probably an interaction I'd imagine, probably like modest Ludicolo and probably like jolly Annihilape. That's what I would expect there. But now you've kind of forced Ben to think like, oh, maybe is Tornadus something I should be bringing here? But no, do not bring Tornadus here. There's no way Tornadus is the right call. You don't want to bring Tornadus, which will just get absolutely obliterated by a Glacial Lance. Instead, I think what you need to do, if you're Ben, is just not Terra your Kyogre. I think that was the real big downside. If you had, for example, Terra Dark Amoonguss plus your Kyogre there in the endgame, I think that endgame goes way differently. But Kyogre just having to take so much damage from that Glacial Lance, I think just swung it massively in Alex's favor. So hold on to your Terastallization if you're Ben, and I think you'll do just fine.
Yeah, absolutely there. And we see an adjustment coming out from Alex, bringing the Calyrex along with the Annihilape in the Pokemon Select screen there. We'll see if Ben is making an adjustment on his end as well here in Game 2. Here we go. We see Kyogre coming out at the start this time, and he is bringing the Tornadus.
Yeah, so Tornadus will get enable if Ben wants to get up a Tailwind, and that would allow then the Kyogre to outspeed the Annihilape and one-shot it with a Water Spout. The downside of doing that is it means Calyrex gets Trick Room. Now, Tornadus could respond to that by instead going for Taunt into the Calyrex-Ice Rider. By doing Taunt into Ice Rider, then it prevents it from going for Trick Room. However, that means that it doesn't have the speed advantage, which means probably the Kyogre would have to go for Protect. But if you do that, then potentially the Calyrex-Ice could go for Glacial Lance just straight away into the Tornadus, predicting the Taunt. There's a lot of gotchas here, and it's not super obvious like what the right play is. I think Ben has to get it right, though. And I think that there's a lot of things that, like, if Ben gets it wrong, then things go really, really wrong. The Calyrex-Ice being Terra Water just means that it's always going to take, like, relatively little damage from these two Pokemon. And we do just see Annihilape switch out, probably predicting the Protect on the Kyogre, going into Indeedee to potentially be able to redirect away Grass Knots later.
Yeah, that Psychic Surge is actually huge because it will protect the Calyrex from a Prankster Taunt. Yes. That priority taunt would be blocked, allowing this Trick Room to go up. So we'll see if Ben was able to see that play and adjust accordingly. So here's the Protect from Kyogre, not getting any big damage down, but instead it's Tornadus trying to get some damage down and not going for Tailwind or Taunt. Honestly, the best move that Tornadus could have done, but here we are in Trick Room. Yeah,
I agree. The Indeedee coming in, blocking that Taunt option, Ben wisely saying, I'm probably not going to get away with this. But it's still not great for you. Tornadus does not have Protect, and you're in a lot of danger of just taking like a Helping Hand, or no, it's not Helping Hand, excuse me. I guess it's just a Heal Pulse Glacial Lance. But like you can't switch in your Amoonguss on that. Like you can't switch your, well, Maybe Ben thinks otherwise. I don't know. Let's see what's coming in here. Okay, it is just the Iron Hands. A lot safer than the Amoonguss switching it on a super effective Glacial Lance. But yeah, Lance comes out, and that's going to do a good chunk into both Pokemon.
Yeah, decent chunk. Kyogre's Water Spouts are massively going to be weakened here, doubling up into it even, but intelligently knowing that it would be weakened so much, goes for that Origin Pulse, getting a critical hit. Man, that is big on the Calyrex, and then just straight takes out the Indeedee. The Focus Sash having been broken the previous turn by the Bleakwind Storm. Ben
probably getting about the best turn you could there. Getting a critical hit on the Calyrex means that it's lower HP, but as a cost of doing that, the Hatterene now gets to come out in the field, and it has Psychic Terrain. There's nothing that switches in on a combination attack of, I think, even just Dazzling Gleam and Glacial Lance, but Expanding Force is also very powerful. I don't blame you for going for this. The advantage of going for a Dazzling Gleam would be potentially you could set up a KO on the Iron Hands to KO it and get an attack boost that way, but Expanding Force should do the job on Iron Hands just by itself. And now the Kyogre has burned through its Protect. Tornadus definitely can't come back in. It's got to be that Amoonguss. But if Amoonguss comes in, it's basically forced to go for that Terrestrialization. Will that be something that Alex can read into and take advantage of?
I mean, I think with how much damage this Hatterene has been putting out, even if it chooses to, like, Dazzling Gleam plus Glacial Lance just feels so free. It'll just do so much damage. This Hatterene has been outputting massive amounts of damage with the Life Orb into all Pokemon it's been going up against. So I think this is a really rough spot for Ben here.
Yeah.
And Alex has piloted this Trick Room incredibly well.
Yeah, the one thing you have to watch out for is that Spore. We've seen from Game 1 that Amoonguss is slower than Calyrex, which means that it will move first here in Trick Room, though. Not likely before the Hatterene. But still, again, kind of force into this Terra Dark. But it's so obvious. Like, you're not just going to let Expanding Force KO the Amoonguss. That would also do heavy damage to the Kyogre. So a Dazzling Gleam here from the Hatterene will be really, really good, and that is what's selected. Oh, it's a 1-hit KO on the Amoonguss! A critical hit!
Oh, man, I don't think that mattered, but that's absolutely massive. There's no chance for a Spore to shut down this Calyrex-Ice Rider, and this Calyrex is able to single target into this Kyogre after it took the Dazzling Gleam damage, and that is enough to get another knockout.
Yeah, that's huge. Amoonguss had to survive there. Whether or not it goes down is game determining, and as you can see, there's just no way. Like, Tornadus can't protect itself. It's just going to fall to probably even just a lone Expanding Force, let alone the Glacial Lance following up, let alone a Choice Scarf Annihilape in the back that can do any remaining damage. This game is over for sure. Expanding Force comes out. Tornadus, will that be able to survive the attack? No way. Goodbye, Tornadus. That's a win for Alex.
Oh, man. What a quick series of games, which is ironic coming from the Trick Room team. Really, really well played by Alex, putting a stop to Ben's undefeated run through the tournament so far.
Yeah, Alex there, I think, playing really well. That switch to Indeedee and Terra Wire Trick Room was just almost unpunishable. Like, it's not clear to me, like, how Alex would have been able, how Alex would have been able to get it. It's not clear to me how Ben would have been able to get around that. Like, you have to just hard read that and go for, like, Water Spout and Bleakwind Storm, but that doesn't even kill. And then it's the same thing next turn. So, really well played by Alex there, utilizing their Trick Room team to its full extent and punishing Ben for what had to be some, like, again, some obvious moves. Like, again, perhaps the Amoonguss, it might not have needed to Terrestrialize there. It would have been able to take a Dazzle Gleam really well if it was a poison type, but it just felt forced into it. And Alex just able to comfortably read into that, saying, of course you're going to Terra Dark your Amoonguss, and getting a really big punish.
Yeah, absolutely. Just incredible blitz there. That was an incredible game. I'm looking forward to the other side, finding out the result of that. Will versus Chris, our Masters Division Dondozo player, up against Chris had the Lunala Trick Room, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so we either have more Dondozo or Trick Room versus Trick Room. Either way, I'm very excited.
Yep, so we will go ahead and wait for that other top 4 set to be complete. Once it has finished, then we will be back with our finals here at the League Challenge happening at the Collector Store in St. Peters, Missouri.